It's Sagittarius, the Aquarius, with my relatable revival. Hello and welcome, my fellow star sisters and brothers.
Hi y'all, I hope you guys are doing well this morning. I'm going to continue my sun sign in your father, and I'm going to continue with Sagittarius sun sign. This will also apply if you have sun in the 9th house or if you have sun and Jupiter aspects. This will give you more of a description of how your relationship with your father will play out. If it resonates, take it. If it don't, leave it. Astrology is fluid. If it's not happening to you, it could be happening around you or to somebody close to you. And then again, like I said, it's not all going to resonate. And then also I wanted to say that Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and not traditional or more modern astrology, we see Jupiter as the higher octave of Mercury. So you can see Sagittarius kind of the higher octave of Gemini, because Gemini is more about the everyday things in life that you learn and you get smart about, whether that's really perfecting, how to do the dishes, how to work on a car or how to change a light bulb, things like that. When Sagittarius energy is more of really getting into a field, dissecting it, perfecting it, and getting that degree. Okay, that's it's fluid, similar energy, but different. So let's continue. So let's say you have your sun in Sagittarius or sun in the 9th house. What could your dad been like? What are some traits you could have inherited from him? How could your relationship with him play out now? How could it? First thing I started with was your dad around? So again, with that Sagittarius energy, dad could have been here, there, everywhere. Dad wasn't prepared to be a dad. Not that he wasn't ready, because obviously you have a baby, you better get ready, right? And some of us, we ain't ready, right? But I'm not gonna necessarily say that your dad wasn't ready for you. But when it came to being prepared mentally, because for Sagittarius, they're all about their freedom. So if they might see a kid as something that's in the way, so this is more on the extreme negative end. Your dad could have seen you kind of as an obstacle and he wanted to get around you, so he might have just totally abandoned you, been in and out of your life. Again, with that wild card I mentioned in the Gemini video, he could hit you with wild cards, oh, okay. But let's say your dad's a little bit more high vibrational. He could have been religious, a preacher. He could have been a cult leader, which is not really high vibrational, but more political. He was very passionate about things that are playing out in society and things like that. He taught you to stand up for yourself and what is right. So whether that was your dad sitting you down and having to talk to you about how important it is to stand up for what's right and to protect yourself, or was it dad putting you in situations where you had to learn what was right and you had to see what wasn't right and you had to learn to protect yourself? See the fluidity? Okay, so he was protective of you and he wanted to make sure you were safe at least. So let's say even if your dad was an absent dad, you didn't even know who he was, he didn't come around until later on. Your dad could have even been in the picture the whole time, but you didn't even know that was your dad. And in this case, you could have also been adopted, where you're born into a family which is a different culture of yours. Again, yeah, you could have been orphan, adopted, so you had no idea who your dad was or is until you turned 18 or something like that. That's how this can play out. And again, dad can be in and out, really focusing more on what he wants to do, his pursuits, what he's got going on. But at least, he's gonna be protective, and even if he's not in the picture, you could find him calling your mama, asking how you kids are doing, but it was never directly to you guys, or just calling in, checking in on you guys once in a while, right? High expectations of you academically. And just in general, he had high expectations for you. He saw a lot of potential for you. Maybe there was a lot of untapped potential, a lot of things he didn't do with his life that, he wants that for you. He wants to see you do, bigger, better things for yourself. He also always wants to hear about what you got going on, what you're doing. He wants to know the gossip, the tea. He wants to know the drama. He can be a little dramatic at times, but he also just wants to know about how you're expanding your own life, like whether you're getting a bigger house, whether you're getting out that apartment into a house, whether you had got your car off of Facebook Marketplace. So did I ain't judging nobody. But then, now you're getting one off the lot. You know what I'm saying? Your dad wants to hear about all this stuff, and you might find yourself, when you speak with your dad, that you want to tell him all this stuff, That Jupiter energy is all about that big, that, gassing up, Jupiter can be a malefic. It can be like almost gaslighting. It's like it could be related to gaslighting for sure. So dad was playful, fun-loving, adventurous. So again, he could have been, he could have hit you with the wild cards, like I said with the Gemini video, where he was here, there, anywhere. You didn't know what side of dad you're gonna get sometimes. He could be unpredictable, but that could have also made him more fun, for you, like how he was adventurous. You and your dad could have went on like hiking trails, fishing, went outdoors. Y'all could have went to amusement parks, when he did show up, if that is your story. So dad was very independent, and he practiced his free will extremely at times. Okay, so you could inherited your independence, like that independent personality trait from your dad, or you could just had to be independent because your dad wasn't around, okay? And you could see him practice his free will extremely at times. So literally meaning like, I'm gonna do what I want, how I want to do it. You could have found him like being insensitive or inconsiderate at times of your feelings, and you're just kind of like, okay, so be it, this is what it is. And you just gotta kind of swallow that lump in your throat. So he was then playing in with this, he could have been very self-righteous, okay? Kind of like that, I'm big, you're small, this is my house, this is my rules, what goes. Even if he wasn't right, even if he knew that, you had more to say, even though he knew that you had a valid point, he'll stick to his guns, and he'll make sure that that he's the one that's right. So he's very self-righteous. That's just an example of how it could play out. And then also being self-righteous where, he don't even feel real guilty about not being a part of your life, or not even really having a hand in your life at all. So he encourages your growth and your adaptation to new things. So again, whether your dad sat you down or you picked this up, by watching him and he taught you how to grow, or you just inherited these personality traits from him to adapt well to things, to encourage growth. Or on the flip side, you could have had your dad who wasn't present. So, you had to grow up quick. You had to grow up, it was the hard knock life. So you had to learn how to expand yourself, grow within yourself to get yourself to where you wanted to be. You had to learn how to adapt to things easily, new situations, because of your father. And even with that personality, like dealing with him, you with that wild card, for instance, you didn't know what you were expecting. So you look towards him for encouragement and advice. So you could find yourself, just kind of dumping into your dad, venting to him, going on tangents to your dad, and him just, pouring good advice, good enrichment, his best life advice to you. He will give you that, unless he's like one of those jealous, gaslighting, Sag energy, where he doesn't want that for you because he's really envious to see other people grow further than he can grow. And that wrath can be taken out on his own children. So you can see that your dad never really grew up, or is a kid at heart still. And on extreme side, he can be childlike. Like I said, you can consider him to be like inconsiderate and insensitive. He can be generous and warm and welcoming when he wants to, but then again, he can be really to himself, detached. He can be perceived as aloof, in his own little world, doing his own little thing. So his career kept him away for long periods of time. So like, let's say, okay, your dad wasn't absent, he wasn't in and out or anything like that. He could have had a career that kept him away from the house. So whether that was in the army, he had a traveling career, whether it was like, a traveling nurse, a traveling doctor, whether that was, him having an affair and running off. So be it. He was away. He could have been away for long periods of time. So he was really into his talents, his careers, his interests, whatever made him happy. That was his focus. And you heard about it, you knew about it. Almost felt like he had an insatiable appetite. So an insatiable appetite. So it's like, whether your dad could have been like, quote unquote obese, or he was always wanting more. It's like nothing you told him was good enough. He wanted more out of you. He had very high expectations. Like, oh, Dad, I got, a B+ on that really hard test. Why didn't you get an A? Why didn't you get an A? You could have felt like you were just never good enough for him. You were always trying to show a new you, a better you to him to get his approval. And sometimes, you never will get that. You'll never get that closure in life. And you can discover later on that your dad is not who he actually says he is. Or, like I said, like, if you were adopted, you were an orphan, or, whether your dad was around you the whole time and no one in your family told you that was your real father. Or you could just grow up, once you become